Welcome to episode 144 from the Shed End. Theo, how you doing first of all? How's things?
I'm good, yeah. Looking forward to the Bournemouth game on Tuesday. I'm expecting a tough one, really, really tough one. But yeah, I'm good. I've enjoyed the weekend. Bloody cold in London, really, really cold. I've had to defrost after a cold morning. But yeah, looking forward to getting back into swing of things next week. How you doing?
Yeah, no, I'm good. I'm looking forward to the game like you. Back to back. I mean, obviously, brilliant result against Morecambe in the cup, but I think focus and attention has to go straight back to the Premier League, where things haven't been the best for us, as we spoke about last week. But before we get into the episode today, please make sure, as always, you subscribe to the channel, you like the video, and you leave your thoughts, predictions as well. Give us your predicted lineups and predicted score lines in the comments below. But we are talking Bournemouth, who we will be facing tomorrow, which will be a brilliant performance, hopefully, from us after a good weekend. But off the back of the performance against Morecambe, we should hopefully see something a bit better from Chelsea, from Maresca. What's your take on Bournemouth and where you stand with hopefully 3 points against them?
Yeah, absolutely. I mentioned in a couple episodes back that I really felt the FA Cup game against Morecambe could act as a bit of a springboard for us to kind of regain a bit of
Yeah.
confidence and momentum. And obviously 5-0 clean sheet, some players that needed their goals in João Felix and Nkunku, and then a really solid Tosin performance at centre-back, and he contributed with a few goals. I'm really hoping that those type of players now kind of re-enter Maresca's plans and also potentially helps us kind of get back to where we need to be in the Premier League, because we know it was nowhere near that end of 2024, and the draw at Selhurst Park to start the year as well. We mentioned it, 2 points out of a possible 12 is not good enough. And if things continue in that direction, we're not going to make top four at all. So a home game against Bournemouth, I know that they've really been good under Areola this season. They've taken points off the likes of City, Arsenal, Tottenham, I think, and a few other big clubs. We did very, very well to get 3 points at the Vitality back in September.
Yeah.
I think I really remember that game because it just felt like it wasn't going to happen. I think Sanchez saved the penalty. It was just Bournemouth all-out attack, and we were defending, and then Nkunku comes in clutch with a well-taken goal towards the end of the game to rescue the 3 points. And I'm expecting a very similar affair on Tuesday night. It's a really good Bournemouth side, so if we can get 3 points against them, I think it'll be a huge achievement, and hopefully can kickstart our 2025.
Yeah. No, I think you, and I hope you're right. I think, you look at, I don't think Bournemouth have beaten us at Stamford Bridge since 2019. I think it was Dan Gosling who got the winner late into the game. We have got a good record against Bournemouth at Stamford Bridge. I know the Vitality is a very, very difficult ground for us to go to in recent times, but we have got a really good record against Bournemouth at home. I think Maresca, really, for me, really, this is the crucial. I remember saying at the start of December that that was a crucial time in our season. But I think now, the league table is going to start forming. Teams will drop off. You look at Forest, potentially they might drop off. Newcastle and now jumping into that top four conversation alongside Man City. So I think we have to be, we have to guard that sort of safety cushion that we had before Christmas is no longer there. We had that lovely points cushion. We're sitting comfortably in second place before Christmas. We're now currently fourth, 20 games played, 10 wins, 6 draws, 4 losses, 36 points. Newcastle 35, Man City 34 points, Bournemouth 33. This is the game essentially where come, the end of the following weekend coming up now, we could be at that top four conversation. How difficult do you think it will be if we do, we drop points against Bournemouth? How difficult do you think it's going to be for us to then get back into that top four with some of the games we've got coming up as well?
Absolutely, you just mentioned some of those games coming up. We've got a tough run of fixtures after this. I believe it's I think it's Man City following the Bournemouth game. Was there one?
We've got Wolves. We've got Wolves.
Wolves on a Monday night, which won't be easy either, because I think they've picked up a bit of form under their new manager, and I'm sure we'll do a preview of that. But Matheus Cunha just looks like a hell of a player.
Yeah.
And then we've got City away on the following weekend, Saturday, which I'm going to actually at the Etihad. And then I think it's Brighton, West Ham, I believe.
West Ham, Brighton.
West Ham, yeah, that's all right. And West Ham, you just know they'll pick up a bit of form with the new manager bounce with Potter
Of
as
course,
well,
Graham
most
Potter.
likely. I mean, the players are going to give it their all for him. So, um,
Even if they don't, he'll still tell us that they did anyway. So
exactly, yeah. So yeah, it's going to be a tough run of games, and then probably Conference League starts again in, I think, March time, and then there will be another FA Cup game probably beginning of February. Now that we've secured our space in the fourth round of the FA Cup. So yeah, these type of games I think are must wins because you look at the points we picked up at home against Newcastle and Aston Villa, and how that they've allowed us to almost kind of just gain a bit of a head start amongst those teams who are kind of just breathing behind our backs right now. And if we can get 3 points on Bournemouth, who you mentioned only 3 points behind us, I think, then it will be 6 points, and that would just give us a bit more of a gap and a bit more of a breathing space. But yeah, it's going to be tough. I feel like I was almost more optimistic when we were playing Villa and Newcastle than playing this very informed Bournemouth team right now.
He's got them playing well, like you said. They I mean, just looking at their recent run of games, their last defeat was against Brighton. That was on the 23rd of November. So it tells you how good their results have been. They've got a decent result against Wolves. They beat Tottenham. They beat Ipswich. They drew against West Ham. They're able to get a 3-0 win against Manchester United at Old Trafford, which is no easy pickings, even with Erik ten Hag or at the time Ruben Amorim, who was in charge. Bournemouth was a draw. Fulham draw. Everton 1-0 win at the Vitality in their recent fixture in the league. But I look at Bournemouth. I mean, we know that they have some threats going forward with Semenyo. We know that Evan Nielsen, Justin Kluivert. They've got some really good players. I like their two in midfield with Ryan Christie and Lewis Cook as well, who aren't scared to get involved and make things tricky in that midfield for Bournemouth as well. I feel like Enzo Maresca cannot overthink this lineup. I'm thinking back to Ipswich. I'm thinking to the team that we've just watched at the weekend with Morecambe. We spoke about it yesterday around Josh Achiampong not playing in the FA Cup game. You'd expect him to maybe get some minutes, but we expect some changes, don't we? Surely we'll see a very strong Maresca side. What would be your lineup going into this one? In terms of let's get our lovely predicted lineup up.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned some of the Bournemouth players. I'm a massive fan of this Dean Hushand. I think the defender who's been linked to Real Madrid.
Yeah,
he lost Karkesh as well. He's going to be a massive threat.
Yeah,
Semenyo, who I thought was really impressed with him when he played against Chelsea on the last day of the season last year. Yeah, Maresca can't overthink this. At the same time, he's got a bit more of a headache now in terms of picking his 11 because you've got players returning from injury like Lavia, like Reece James. So there are going to be some players that are going to kind of find themselves on the bench. But given what we just said about Bournemouth and how much we praise them, we have to kind of go with our strongest 11, in my opinion. And that's got to be Robert Sanchez. He's the Premier League goalkeeper, and Jurgensen was a bit shaky against Morecambe, which we spoke about in our previous recording. So it's got to be Robert Sanchez. Are you in agreement with that one?
Yeah, no, I am. I think,
Okay,
I don't think we will see Jurgensen in goal. I think it will be Sanchez.
Yeah, but yeah, like we said, he overthinked it. Maybe tinkered slightly against Ipswich and had Jurgensen, who didn't really set up for wrong apart from maybe giving away the penalty, which was still controversial.
It was a soft penalty.
Yeah,
like you said,
very soft.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Robert Sanchez starts for me, and he's been quite good in the last few games. I'm sure we've dropped points, but he's made some big saves, and it could have been a lot worse if he wasn't in between the sticks. I would go with Reece James as the right back.
I agree.
I think the fact he only played 45 minutes against Morecambe is quite telling that he will get potentially a start against Bournemouth, and he's our captain. He's training. He's fit now. Why shouldn't he be starting, in my opinion? Two centre-backs. I would go with Levi Colwell as the left centre-back, who didn't play against Morecambe, so he's most likely rested. And slightly different thinking, but because he played such a good game against Morecambe, I would go with Tosin.
I would as well. I would.
Yeah, it's harsh on Achiampong because I do feel like he deserves to get some minutes. He didn't play a part at all against Morecambe. But I think just simply when you're kind of riding that wave of confidence, which Tosin is at the moment, he's got to start.
Yeah. And I think we have to manage Achiampong's minutes as well. I know defensively he's not he's still got a vital role to play in the team. But I think we have to go with our strongest team. And I know that Ashian Pong is a very good defender, but he's played one Premier League game so far this season against Crystal Palace, and we can't afford to drop points tomorrow night.
Absolutely, and he played in an unnatural position as a centre back against Palace, and he did a really good job. I think he was the best player for Chelsea. That being said, he probably still needs to work on a lot of things on the training ground if he is going to stick as a centre back. So yeah, my two CBs would be Colwell and Tosin, and then left back would be Cucurella for me.
Yeah, 100%. I'd go with that as my back line as well.
This is where it gets tricky now, centre mids, because do you drop Reece James and have Caicedo as the inverted right back? And then do you have Lavia and Enzo, or do you just stick with potentially Lavia and Caicedo, or do you go with Enzo and Caicedo, who didn't play a single minute against Bournemouth? It's
I
a
would
tricky
go.
one.
I would go with the two that's on there now. I think Lavia, again, another one who's come back from a big injury. I worry about him. I put him in the same bracket as Wesley Fofana in terms of injuries. I think he's always one game away from a big injury again. And I think if we can manage his minutes this season, I think we'll reap the benefits of that next season more so. I think the two, Enzo, Caicedo, for me personally, would be the two I would go with. But I hear the conversation and the discussion for Lavia as well.
Yeah, I would agree. I feel Lavia is very, very injury prone. He got 45 minutes against Morecambe, but purely because he didn't kick a ball, I would go with Enzo and Caicedo, who'll be fresh now. However, if this doesn't work out in any way, I would like Maresca to make changes very quickly at half time. I don't not wait until the 70th or 75th minute, and that could potentially see Caicedo dropping as the inverted fullback and Lavia filling in that spot alongside Enzo in midfield.
Would you? So, I mean, I agree with you, but then I also think we're going to be more effective with Caicedo in the midfield and Josh Ashimpong if we need to. If we need to take Reece James off for whatever reason, or we could maybe put, I don't know. I think Ashimpong for me would be my first choice, like for Reece James. I think we have to have Caicedo in that midfield. I think that the option for me at halftime, and this is obviously dependent on how the game goes, it could be that Caicedo does need to come off, but if he doesn't, I would take Enzo off and bring on Lavia. I just don't think Maresca's ever going to do that, because I think his first choice partnership in that midfield is going to be those two. So it's tricky. I hear the argument for both sides of that, I think.
Yeah, you mentioned something interesting, how your like change for Reece James would be Ashampong as right back. So would you have Reece James, Ashampong, Gusto in that order right now?
Yeah, I would. I think with Gusto, I actually don't think Maresca trusts him. I think Maresca doesn't. I don't know if it's something that's happened, on the training ground at Cobham, but I just don't see that sort of trust that Gusto that we got to see when Reece James was out injured last season. We're not really getting to see that this season, and that might just because of the fact he's been limited on his game time. But with Ashley Mpong coming in, there's been a lot of noise about him before he signed the new contract as well. I just think Maresca probably favours him above Malo Gusto. What do you think? What's your thoughts? What would your three be?
Yeah, I mean, they're good. They're three good options. Obviously, there's still fitness issues that kind of linger with Reece James, whether he'll be in the kind of conversation in a couple of videos' time. But I would agree right now I'd have Reece James, Ashampong, Gusto, purely based on form and purely based on how kind of important of a player they can be for us. And I agree with what you said about Gusto. I don't think he's looked like the same player he was last season when he filled in for Reece James whilst he was out injured. So he needs to kind of regain that form and that confidence at right back, and also regain Maresca's trust. Well, yeah, absolutely,
100%. What's our front three going to be before we get to the striker?
Oh, this gets tricky now, because if you listen to our previous video, we were just praising João Felix a lot and mentioning how much what he offers, kind of that some other players can't kind of provide. But if I'm pretty doing this based on predictions, I think it will be Sancho and Neto as the two wingers, with Palmer as the 10 and Jackson as the striker. I would love to see Felix start. I would potentially over Sancho and have like the Neto and Felix Portuguese combination on the pitch.
Yep.
But I think given Neto was withdrawn at halftime against Morecambe and
Morecambe.
Sancho was introduced at halftime, means they only got 45 minutes each, which probably means that they're going to, they got to have their game time, their minutes ahead of the Bournemouth game. That being said, those three Palmer's contributed with goals, but sometimes he's looked a bit. What I will say about if we go with these three, if it's not working, I want Maresca to make a change, and even if that means bringing Palmer off for a João Felix or an Nkunku as the 10, because I think that's something we mentioned a couple of days ago. Is he needs to be more kind of willing to take Palmer off and not have him stay on the pitch until the 90th minute. And if people who go to Stamford Bridge will notice this a lot more, but as soon as the referee blows the full-time whistle, Palmer collapses on the ground out this stream. He's just sitting there.
It's not funny, but
so yeah, I mean, he's knackered, but I don't blame him. He plays a lot of football. He plays every minute of every single game almost that he does play in. So yeah, those would be my front four. But it's a tricky one because it's still there's a lot of players that are knocking on Maresca's door, including actually even Tyreek George, who I was very impressed with against Morecambe.
I like that, but I have to change it slightly. I think I have to go with what I said in the previous recording. I have to put João Felix in. I have to, but I think just not off the back of the Morecambe performance, but I think he has to. I keep saying it. He's the one for me that I think will give us something going forwards. He's got something in his locker all the time. There's something about João Felix that we have to find a space for him in this team now. I think he's proven time and time again against different opposition, whether that's a lesser opposition or in the Premier League, that he has got something about him. I think Cole Palmer needs to go back on the right, where he was playing a lot of the games last season, and I feel like he's more effective. I feel like that's where he got his 20 plus goals from, or his 20 goals from last season. His more assists last season. Already at this, I think probably at this point last season again. So putting back on the right way, things were working correctly. I don't think he's been as effective as a 10, and I think this is where you can then get the best out of Christopher Nkunku by putting him as that 10. I just think if we can have him as the 10, it might not work. If it doesn't work, as you said, Maresca has options on the bench. He can bring them on at half time, 55 minutes into the game, 60 minutes into the game, but he has to make those changes early on. Bournemouth are going to get chances against us. We know that defensively we're poor. We know that Sanchez isn't the best playing out from the back, so they're going to get their chances. I think that attacking option, and Neto as well, and Sancho will give us options going forward. But I think if we can get this, and I'm going to make one more change. I'm going to go with that. I'm going to go with Mark Gu. I think he deserves a chance. I really do. I know I said don't overthink it, but I don't think we have either way, whether we start Jackson, Sancho, Neto. I don't think we've overthought anything. I just think Mark Gu has to be given an opportunity. I think Nicholas Jackson needs competition as a striker, and I don't think he's got that at the moment.
Well, question though, because Felix, Gui and Nkunku played 90 minutes on Saturday, and this Bournemouth game is only coming 2 or 3 days later. Is it too soon to give them like another start straight away, or given they're professional athletes, professional footballers, they've got it in their locker to start these games consistently?
If we're talking about a team that we're hoping to push into the top 4, the expectation is some of these players are going to have to do this next season. Champions League football, FA Cup, Carabao Cup. So they're going to have to play 2 games a week. Unfortunately, I get it. It's Saturday, Tuesday, which isn't a long period of time, but then playing on a Thursday night and then playing on a Sunday to me is no different. So I think they can do it, and I think there's going to be changes at halftime. I think the options are there, but I think we have to start the game well in order for us to be able to do that. To make those changes at halftime, we have to be 2, maybe 3-0 up. We can't make those changes at 1-0 because we've seen against Fulham. The comeback was on. We've seen against Palace recently as well. So I think they can do it. And I think Mark Gu, for me, young player, Nkunku, young player, João Felix, young player, Cole Palmer ran down into the ground, but I think we need him in that team to, again, be effective on the right. But what do you think? Do you think it's probably a bit too much to ask of them to play sort of back-to-back 90 minutes?
No, I like this lineup a lot. And every time a player performs, I always say they need to be in Maresca's kind of plans to start the next game. I just worry that maybe this game comes a bit too soon after the Morecambe one, where they played 90 minutes. If it was on a Wednesday, I would definitely say yes, because they would have maybe that extra day to recover. But I do like this lineup a lot, and I do want to see a way that Maresca can have Joao Felix and Kunku Palmer in his starting lineup. What I will say though is if we do go this lineup, it's the fullbacks, Reece James and Cucurella are going to have to be at their very best to compete with Waltara, with Evan Nilsson, with Semenyo, with Milos Kerkesh, who are all fantastic players for Bournemouth. So either way, if we go my lineup or your one, it's not going to be a straightforward game.
No, and I think we have to guard against complacency. I mean, we really do. Defensively, we have to be a lot stronger. I think in terms of being switched on, being a unit at the back. But this is where the experience of someone like Tosin, who I said is what I think is a leader at the back. Reece James now has to come in and prove why he's the club captain of Chelsea Football Club and do his role, not just defensively, but as a leader as well. But I think either lineup is worthy of 3 points. I think that's what it ultimately comes down to, is that we both picked a squad that we both think is capable of getting us 3 points. 7:30 kickoff, Stamford Bridge. The same time, Brentford, Man City will be kicking off as well. What's your score prediction for the game on Tuesday?
This is a tricky one. I've gotten it quite wrong recently. I think I had us to beat Palace. I had us to beat Ipswich.
We should have beat Palace.
You got the Morecambe one right. Yeah, we should have, to be fair. I was just short of a goal for my Morecambe prediction. I had a 4-0. I'm not overly confident about this fixture on Tuesday. I don't know why, but I still think we'll get 1 point, and I'm going to go over 1-1 draw, unfortunately. Similarly to how the Palace game planned out, similarly how the Nottingham Forest game planned out. I think it's just going to be maybe Chelsea will get the opening goal, and then Bournemouth will get like a late equaliser towards the end of the match.
We've been through this story before. We've watched this movie before, haven't we? But I think it'll be a tricky game. I think 2-1 Chelsea. I just think Bournemouth will definitely score. I mean, they've scored 30 goals, I think, this season already. They're attacking wise, you mentioned Semenyo, Evan Nilsson are two good players, for not just those two purely, but they're good players for Bournemouth. Kirk's another one who I think is quite good getting down the left side as well. I think he's got a couple of good assists this season as well. Chips in, I think, with goals. But 2-1. I think 2-1. I think if we can start on the right foot, as I said, 2019 is the last win for Bournemouth at Stamford Bridge. I don't think we can afford to lose this game. I actually don't think we can afford it. If we drop out the top four, I think we struggle to get back in there.
I want to say something quite controversial, but I think if we do concede, I hope the Bournemouth goal comes first, and then we have to kind of like push to get the equaliser and then the winner. Because you look at all of the positions where we've gone on to score the first goal against Palace, against Nottingham Forest, in the other fixture against Palace back in September, against Fulham as well, we bottled a 1-0 lead. It just seems like we kind of get a bit complacent and we just decide almost not to push for the second goal. Whereas if maybe Bournemouth get their goal in the, let's say, the 10th or the 20th minute, then that forces us to kind of change our game plan and push for an equaliser, and then hopefully eventually as well a winner. It's controversial, I know, but I know that Bournemouth will score. It's like a given.
They will.
Our defence is still on the road to improve, and so yeah, I kind of hope we almost have in a position to chase the game. Obviously, not too late into the game, but if Bournemouth do score, let it be an early one.
I agree to an extent, but I think one of the things we've struggled with this season is low blocks. And I think if they score, they sit back, they allow us to have the ball, we struggle to break them down. Everton done that against us in recent times. But I think if we can't get that, if they do score first and it's very early on, I do worry that they'll just sit back and allow us to, pass the ball around, which we've done before. And then we end up with it back at Sanchez and we try and build from the back again and it just doesn't work. But this is where Maresca, if that is the case, Maresca has to make changes and bring on players that are willing to do that. If it's not Joao Felix that's starting, bring him on. If Nicholas Jackson isn't scoring or taking his chances, take him off and bring on Mark Gu. Bring on Pedro Neto if he's not starting, or swap him for Madueke if you have to. So it's a fair shout. It is a fair shout. It worries me a little bit. It worries me more than the game in itself, because I don't see us scoring 2 if they score first. I think we have to get our 2 goals, and then strangely we have to allow them to score 1 goal very late on into the game. But we have to see. We've done our score predictions, we've done our predicted lineups. we have to hope we can get 3 points. That's all we can hope for in this game.
Absolutely, yeah. I think something I've noticed is Bournemouth do score late. I think a few of their goals recently have come towards the end of the matches, and we also concede late, which is worrying. Against Brentford, against Fulham, against Crystal Palace. Those games spring to memory more recently. So if that also worries me, that if we do kind of take an early lead, we need to make sure we defend it until the end as well.
Yeah, and that's one thing we haven't been doing. But let's hope for 3 points. Let's hope for a positive result. Theo, as always, thank you very much for joining. We'll be back soon. Don't forget to subscribe, like the video, hit the Linktree link in the description as well. If you're new here, there's a Linktree link to all our social accounts, so make sure you go there and follow those as well. And we'll be back later on this week with obviously match reaction to Bournemouth. We'll look forward to our game at the weekend as well against Wolves. I think it's against Wolves.
On Monday
night. That'd be a tough one. Be a really tough one. But we'll be back very soon. Thanks very much for listening or watching, whichever one you've been doing throughout this segment of the podcast. And we'll be back soon. Enjoy the rest of your week.